When you hear the word social worker, what do you think of? Do you think of child protection and taking people's kids away? Do you think of low-paying, high-stress jobs? Or are you someone that thinks social workers are unqualified therapists? Today we're going to talk about all of the myths and assumptions that I have heard people think in my time as a social worker, and we're busting them. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Anna. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm currently working in pediatric medical social work, but I also have experience in the Department of Juvenile Justice, as well as school social work way back in the day. My BSW internship, it wasn't that long ago, 5 years ago. How about that? I have both my bachelor's in social work and my master's in social work. My bachelor's was from the University of Alabama. My master's was from Fordham University. I've made YouTube videos for over 5 years, starting from back when I was getting my bachelor's in social work, and now that I'm a grown person, I've just kept it up. This is the first time you are seeing me with my new bangs. Funny video for them to be revealed in. If you've never seen me before, could you tell that this is like my first time ever having bangs? I walked around in public and I really just heard the whispers of people saying, she must have never had bangs before. Imposter, imposter. I'm still like figuring them out. I think I like them. And if I don't, they'll grow out. You did not come to this video to talk about my bangs though. You came to this video so that we can bust social work myths. Today's video was actually chosen by our channel members. If you join this channel as a Bees Bestie, you get to vote on the Members Choice video and choose what I'm making every month. Choose one video that I make every month. I go rogue for the rest of them. So if you'd like to influence the videos that I'm posting on here, click the join button down below and become a bestie. Myth number one. I feel like this is the first one that I heard and also the one that I heard the most prevalently, especially whenever I was like back in college and telling people that I was majoring in social work. Social workers just take people's kids away. A little less bluntly, an assumption is usually that social workers always work in child protection services. This myth is false. There are social workers that work in child protection, and there are times where kids enter the foster care system. Many workers that work in child protection are not social workers. Some famous cases that you may hear of bad social workers are not people that have social work degrees. It is so true that the child protection system is messed up and that the foster care system is messed up and should be better. But it also is true that a priority is family reunification. A priority is not removing kids from safe environments when they can stay in a safe environment. And it is also true that if you are getting a degree in social work, you do not have to work in child protection services. So I guess some truth, some lies in there. Social workers just take people's kids away. That's false. The foster care system needs to be better. That's true. Social workers can work in child protection services. That's true. Social workers only work in child protection services. That's false. If you want to become a social worker, you have to work in child protection services. Also false. I believed whenever I was getting my bachelor's that it was like a rite of passage to work for child protection before you did anything else as a social worker. Like I would tell people like, oh yeah, I think I'm going to work for child protection for a few years just to get the experience and then I'll go on to something else. Why would I do that? I don't know. I didn't want to work there. I'm really glad I didn't work there. In social work jobs, you are working for welfare of children often, if you're working with children even. I feel like it's probably rare that there's a social work job that doesn't at some way touch child protection. Like you could have to make a report in any job you do, but that's true for teachers and nurses and, you know, other professions other than social work as well. Has anyone ever said this to you? Have you ever thought this assumption? I find even working in the hospital that this is an assumption that families hold too. And there are times where I need to work harder to establish rapport or even just gain trust because families may have had bad experiences before with child protection or with other social workers. And when they see a social worker in the hospital, not everybody's immediate thought is, oh, this is a person here to support me. Sometimes they may think this is a person here to assess if I'm a good enough parent, and they're gonna say that I'm not, and then my kids are gonna get taken away. And I don't fault people for holding that assumption, but I am here to say that it is not true. Myth number two, you must sign a vow of poverty whenever you choose a career in social work. I would say this is probably the second most topic that I hear brought up whenever I hear people talking about social work or their assumptions about it, is that you're not going to make any money and there's not opportunity to make any money. This is false with an asterisk. There are incredibly low paying social work jobs out there. It is so true that the field of like social services or just like human services as a whole, which includes teachers, nurses, like I already mentioned in this video already. Let's see how many times I can mention teachers and nurses, are undervalued and underpaid. That is true. If you're wanting to make Wall Street money, if you're wanting to make private equity consulting firm money, you're not going to make that in social work. And while this can be used against people, I do think it is true that social workers are not in it for the income, they're in it for the outcome. Whenever you're picking a career in social work, like people aren't thinking, how can I make money? Okay, I'm going to major in social work. We have different whys. We are passionate about the people who we serve. We are passionate about injustice and oppression and wanting to make things right in this world. And I don't think as a social worker, your thought as you go through your career should be, how can I make the most money? How can I make the most money? That being said, there are well-paying social work jobs out there. There are upper middle class salaried social work jobs out there. There are ways to advance your career. There are side hustles that you can take on if you would like to. You do not have to be poor if you're going to be a social worker, but there are jobs out there that do not pay enough. There are also jobs out there that value you and that want to pay competitive rates and that want to keep good social workers, and you just gotta find them. I have have found that on social media, it seems like there's kind of an obsession with like social workers making money. This is totally because I've been like in the social work field on like TikTok and YouTube and things like that. And I will say, I don't think as a social worker, it's our job to be like, how quickly can I get into private practice so that I can make the most money? Like, we have values of social justice and we follow codes of ethics, and not everybody wants to do private practice. And you don't have to like fast track your income by going as quickly as you can to the highest paying job that you can. I think there's a balance of, yes, we deserve to be paid living wages. Yes, we deserve to be paid more than what we do and valued more than we are in society. I deserve to have an income that I can live off of, but I'm also not a social worker for the money. I'm a social worker for other reasons. Myth number 3, you are a social worker even if you don't have a degree in social work. This myth is false. I wonder if I have anything that's true in here. I can't remember. States are different. Some states have title protection laws. Some states do not have title protection laws. A title protection law means that you cannot call yourself something unless you have the qualifications that it outlines that allow you to call yourself that thing. So states with title protection laws, they vary. Some say you have to have a degree in social work in order to call yourself a social worker. Some say you have to have a license as a social worker in order to call yourself a social worker. My state does not have title protection laws, but to me, that doesn't mean that just anybody can be a social worker. You do need to have a degree in social work in order to call yourself a social worker. It's a clinical profession that follows evidence-based practice, and without having that educational background and supervision and practice and experience, you can't call yourself a social worker. This may be different than other people. I don't feel strongly on you have to have a license in order to call yourself a social worker, because to me, if you get the degree, then you have the background to call yourself a social worker. I do think a license is important because it's important for social workers to have a board to be held accountable for, because not every social worker acts as they should and not every social worker is perfect, and it is very important to have a regulatory board for the benefit of clients. Some people may disagree with me on this though. Let me know what you think. I don't think a license is necessary to call yourself a social worker, but in order to call yourself a social worker, you do need to have a degree in social work. Going along with that, myth number 4, social work is just glorified volunteer work. It grinds my gears when I hear people in other professions assume that they could do the exact job of a social worker and do it just as well. And I think that that comes from a place where not everybody understands all of the background that goes into social work. It's not just being a helpful person. We have processes and we have ethics and we have theories, and we see people in the systems that they're in. We're trained to identify power imbalances, how identities affect people's experience of a situation. We have a strengths-based focus. We're trained to promote self-determination. I do hear other people sometimes assume that they could do a social worker's job just as well as them because they're a helpful person, or maybe they've had a lot of volunteer work. But social work is not just glorified volunteer work. Social work is a clinical profession, and you can do it very wrong. And when you do it wrong, it is a harm to the people that you are helping. Social work is not just helping people, it's helping people in ways that are evidence-backed to actually truly be helpful while promoting their dignity and worth. That's not saying everybody does that perfectly, but that's what the profession of social work is. So not just anybody can flip a switch and be a good social worker. You need that social work background, that social work training. Myth number 5, you need to leave your emotions at home in order to be a social worker. This is false with an asterisk. I find that people think this sometimes whenever they think about like, oh, I could just never work in the setting you work. Like my heart would hurt too much. Like my heart would break too much. Oh, I would just take all those babies home with me. Kind of goes along with whenever people say like they can't be a foster parent because they would just love the kids too much, as if it's foster parents' jobs to not love a kid enough. You do not have to leave your emotions at home in order to be a social worker. It is important to feel empathy. It's important to work to understand what it may be like to live a life that your clients are living. It's important to care because the people you're with can tell if you care or not. With that, why there's an asterisk though is that it's also very important to be in control of your emotions. It's very important that your emotions never take over a room. It's important that your emotions don't get in the way of therapeutic interventions with a client. It's important that you're able to support someone through their grief while not feeling their grief as your own. And that's a tough needle to thread. You can't leave your emotions at home. You do need emotions to be a social worker. You also have to be aware and in control of them. And that's part of what makes a good social worker from a not great social worker. It truly is a practice. Like you have to practice and get better at it. But the best social workers you may see, and usually the ones with like the longest careers in social work, are people who balance that well. They're caring and compassionate and passionate, but not at the detriment to their own selves to where they can no longer do the job because they've just like burnt out their little candle. You do not need to leave your emotions at home in order to be a social worker. And also, it is a hard job, and you have to learn to be self-aware and in control of your emotions and understand that you can support a person while not allowing their burdens to be weighing you down. Assumption number 6, social work is a lesser route burnout to becoming a therapist. This is false. I shouldn't have to say that. I have heard this assumption though. I have heard people say this assumption to my face. And I find that sometimes the discourse comes because there's so many different avenues to become a therapist, different degrees, mental health counseling, marriage and family therapy, like there's different ways to become a therapist. And social work is one of those ways. I think because you can do other things other than therapy with a social work degree, it leads some people to feel that getting a degree that's only focused in therapy is the better way to become a therapist. It really is just a difference in background though, a difference in educational background. As social workers, we learn person and environment. We learn that people's environments affect them. Mental health is brain chemistry, but it's not just brain chemistry. We have different codes of ethics than other professions that can be therapists. We have different requirements. We also have different philosophies and different theories. So every field's just different and none's better or worse than the other. I mean, I like social work best, but that makes sense, like I'm in it. But nothing's better or worse than another. And social workers are not only qualified to be therapists, but can make really great therapists. Assumption number 7, burnout is inevitable and everybody quits the field after 2 years. This assumption is false with an asterisk. Apparently all of them that I did today actually were false. Are there true assumptions about social work? Yeah, probably. Why this one gets an asterisk though? Burnout is something that is constant in the field. I think it is something that will always be there, and sometimes you're going to be able to fight it better than you will other times. I don't know if burnout is inevitable, but I do know that there's flexibility in the field. If you're burnt out where you're at, you can get a new position in an entirely new setting. If you're burnt out and it's things that you have control of that you could help fix for yourself, like maybe it's your boundaries or your habits, or that you're taking on other people's burdens as if they're your own. Those may be personal things that you can fix to help fight burnout. Sometimes you're burnt out for reasons that are not your fault. You're being given too much work. You're being made to work too many hours. You're not given proper support at your job. Sometimes burnout just happens because we do work in tough settings. We see hard things. Often the hardest things that exist in this world, there are social workers there. I spend the majority of my days in a cardiac ICU where there are sick babies. That is a hard thing. And I can be doing every strategy right, and my job can be supporting me in the best ways possible, and I'm still gonna fight burnout because that's tough. That's a tough place to be, and that's a tough place to show up every day. So I think the change is like not seeing burnout as something that ends you. Recognizing that there are days where you may be feeling feelings that are like burnout feelings, and there are days that you're going to love your job and not have any complaints. Being self-aware and knowing how you feel and what levels you feel, and then also knowing when it's time to make a move, or when it's time to fix something, or when it's time to advocate for yourself, are all very important. So in summary, burnout's going to be there, but it does not have to lead to social workers quitting the field after 2 years. There are social workers with very long careers. I hope to be one, but that doesn't mean it's easy. What other assumptions have you heard about the field of social work or about being a social worker? And do you disagree with me on any of these? You are so welcome to. Just let me know why in the comments. Join channel memberships if you'd like to be able to pick the members choice video for next month, and if you'd like early access to videos and a monthly live stream where we all hang out together. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for spending these moments with me, and I'll see you next time.